This is Gus Estacio from Healing X Outreach Radio again. And I'm on my way to work right now. Maybe it's probably 8:30 in the morning right now, and I'm a little late to work, but just want to talk a little bit about paradise, the promise that Jehovah's Witnesses really have as a desire to go, and the Christian hope, not necessarily being paradise, that is in the material sense of paradise. I actually gave a sermon, I think a couple months ago, about the Christian hope as opposed to the hope of other religions. And other religions, their idea of paradise is very different from the Christian hope. In Islam, for example, if you should get to paradise, that's the big question for Muslims. Will you really get to paradise? But if you should get to paradise, in Islam, you're promised to have all these virgins, rivers of milk, rivers of wine, because, to be honest with you, Muslims don't drink alcohol. So it's really basically a place where all their prohibitions on the earth are now promised as inhibitions in heaven. And also, what a lot of people don't know is also the Quran promises prebuscent boys. That is, boys that are before pure puberty, which goes back to the issue of child brides and having sex with children as a promise for heaven in the Muslim paradise. In the Mormon church, ladies, you're going to love this. There are three heavens, or three paradises, so to speak. There's the terrestrial, which is like Earth, the celestial, which is kind of like a purgatorial in-between place of heaven and earth, and then the celestial. And the way to get to the celestial heaven is that, first of all, you have to be married. And if you're married, then your husband has to call you up to heaven. We talk about misogynistic religion. Mormon church takes the cake. You have to be called to heaven, ladies, even if you're married, and meet the standards of marriage in the Mormon church. And then, on top of that, this is the wonderful thing, the wonderful gift of Mormon paradise, that the highest of paradise, the celestial. Women, you become a god with your husband. That sounds pretty good. That's not that bad. You get a planet like Earth. Still doesn't sound that bad. But this is proof that the Mormon paradise is completely man-made. You get to be pregnant forever. For all eternity. You will have billions upon billions of babies to populate your planet. That's definitely a man who thought that one up. So, here you get this promise of being gods, you get your own planet. And, never mind the fact that in the garden, the very sin in the garden was the devil promising Eve, and Adam for that matter, that you will be gods, that you will be like God. So that's the Mormon paradise. And then, of course, the Jehovah's Witness paradise is after all the dead bodies that you cleaned up after Armageddon, you get to take your neighbors' houses, the real big ones. You get to pick the houses that you want, and in the big lavish neighborhoods, and you get to live forever, on a paradise earth, and get to touch the animals. And there's a common thread with all of these paradises, and I mentioned this in my sermon. First of all, the word paradise only occurs 3 times in the Bible, in the New Testament. The word is paradisos, is the Greek word. And it never, ever, the word paradise ever is referenced towards this earthly plane, even though Christians have referred to the Garden of Eden as a paradise. In fact, there's a great book written in I believe in the 1400s, and it was called Paradise Lost, and it was about, of course, the castation out of the Garden of Eden by Adam and Eve, by God of Adam and Eve, Paradise Lost, and I forgot the name of the author. But so in all of these paradises, you will find, first of all, they're very materialistic. They're all dependent upon acquiring, places and wealth and things of the flesh. And it's funny because Jesus said that the devil uses as a temptation the desire of the eyes and the desire of the flesh. And yet all of these paradises by these religions are fleshly. In fact, some of them are downright sinful and carnal minded. But the paradise of the Christian, I just made a comment on my picture of Ron DeChani's Safely Home, which is a depiction of a Christian just coming into the throne room of God, and Jesus there embracing the Christian, and the Christian is embracing Jesus, and Jesus is weeping over the homecoming of his sheep. This beautiful image with an angel standing guard, and in the other hand he has his crown or crowns. And this was a image that made me and my wife weep. We went to the Witnesses Now for Jesus convention, and before it had burned down, I guess the front desk of the convention or the retreat place, they had this picture, and my wife chased me down to go ahead and see this picture, and we were just weeping, and we was like, the beauty of that, and it wasn't a beauty based upon materialism. It wasn't a beauty based upon carnality. It was a beauty that makes Christianity unique amongst all other faiths. And that is, it's not a desire, even though there are a lot of these things are promised, the idea of renewed health, the idea of streets of gold and mansions which Jesus promises us in heaven. The main focus of the Christian, and it's mostly at funerals and death that you hear about it, is that you get to be home with the Lord. That's a beautiful thing. That's a desire that none of these religions really have. In fact, the proof of it is I put that image on Facebook, and a Jehovah's Witness said, "What is this nonsense?" The image of Jesus embracing the Christian, his sheep, is nonsense to them because they don't have a desire to be with Christ. Even though in the New Testament, it continuously talks about being with Christ. It's a beautiful thing to desire to be with Christ. Jesus calls himself our groom, and he refers to the New Testament Christians as his bride. And as his bride, as any bride would, if you consider yourself a bride of Jesus Christ, you should have a desire to be with him, to be with your groom. And this is not a sexual desire. This is a love for Jesus that supersedes carnality. It's deeply rooted in worship. It's deeply rooted in fellowship. It's deeply rooted in the kind of relationship that David had with Jonathan. And this was not a homosexual relationship. And yet this is what David said of his companion Jonathan, his best friend. He said, "I have desired you more than the love of women." So here David talks about this fellowship, this bond, this relationship that he has with his best friend Jonathan. And even though Jonathan's father sought his death. That is David's death. I just wanted to mention that the paradise of the Christian is not a place, it is a person. And what we see described in the final chapters of the Bible, in Revelation chapter 21, and Revelation 20, 21, and 22, is Jerusalem, the heavenly city, comes down on the earth, and it's described as Christ's bride coming to the groom. Jesus said he's gone to prepare a place for us. And that's what the whole Jewish setting of marriage was about. The groom would go and he would go build the house before they got married. And as he built this house, he was building it for their life together. Then they would get married, and then they would dwell in the house that the groom already built. Jesus says, I go to prepare a place for you. And if you are his bride, he's preparing that place. Yes, there will be streets of gold, there will be many mansions, but the desire of the Christian is not the place, but the person of Jesus Christ. I can't wait to see my Jesus. I can't wait at the end of my life with the crowns that Jesus has given me the strength and power to earn through his Spirit, that I will one day be able to bring those crowns and say, look, Jesus, this is the power that you gave me. You gave me the power to have these crowns, and now I give them back to you. I love you. Do you love Jesus? Then you love paradise. Bye-bye.